Hi everybody, welcome to this week's homework video. Let's get straight into it. Okay, so we've been talking about word classes, quite a lot so far in the first 2 weeks, and we know quite a lot about them already. You've done very well. I'm very impressed with how quickly you seem to be learning word classes. Okay, but like I said in the last video, it's one thing to know what word classes are and to be able to sort of define each word class. But we go in a bit more depth, okay, with word classes, and I'm going to show you what I mean today. So a few of you came back to me after the last video saying you had trouble either using all of the word classes in one sentence, which is a very tricky thing to do, or begin your sentence with, varied word classes. These are tricky things to do. Like I said to you, don't worry if it's challenging. It's supposed to be challenging. If this was easy, there'd be no point. There'd be no point of me doing this video for you. Okay, it's supposed to be challenging. Okay, so if you find things challenging, don't worry. Just give it a go. Give it your best, and we'll be fine. I promise. Okay. So, having said that, we're going to talk today about how we begin sentences with different word classes. Now, the best thing we can do is practice, and then eventually it will become easy. But of course, there are some things that we can think about that will help us, okay? So if we look at this picture here, right? By the way, I'm a very big fan of scary stories. So a lot of my inspiration comes from abandoned looking houses and mansions like this. Writing scary stories and reading scary stories is very good for our vocabulary, very good for how creative we can be, because within the scary writing genre, we can be very creative. Okay, now it doesn't mean you have to like scary stories. Of course not. There's opportunities to be creative throughout all genres of literature. But it's something that I would recommend if you feel up to it. Okay, R.L. Stine, I don't know if you've heard of him, is a great, he writes a Goosebumps book, Goosebumps series, is very good at being creative, and I really recommend reading his stories if you're interested in reading scary stories. But like I said, just because we're looking at a scary-ish picture on the screen doesn't mean that we have to use scary pictures in all of our creative writing, right? So let's think about this picture here, right? If I wanted to use this picture to write sentences, there are lots of things I can talk about. There are many things in that picture that I can talk about, right? Now, one trick is to think about a sentence this way. Every sentence must have a subject and every sentence must have a verb. Now, we're going to talk about what I mean by subject in a future lesson, but for now, let's replace it with noun. Every sentence must have a noun and every sentence must have a verb. Okay, every single sentence, or it's not a sentence. Okay, and now we know these two things. We know that before we even start writing our sentence, we're going to have a noun or a thing doing something. Yeah, because that's what a verb is. A verb is an action word. So we need to have a noun doing something. So the first thing that I want to think of when I'm writing a sentence is, what noun will I use? What will be my main noun of this sentence, and what will it be doing? Just a general idea. I don't need to write anything down. So I could talk about the trees swaying. I could talk about the house standing. I could talk about the grass swooshing, the clouds moving, the rain falling, a character walking, anything. You can even create something that's not in this picture. You can imagine that there is someone behind the camera taking this picture doing something. Yeah, it's up to you. But think of a noun. Think of what you want that noun to do. That's the first step. Once you've got that in your head, suddenly we can start being really creative. Okay, because once you've got the noun and the verb, you can use an adjective to describe the noun, an adverb to describe the verb, a determiner to tell us how many nouns we've got, a preposition to tell us where the noun is, a conjunction to add a whole new idea, another noun and another verb to your first noun and verb. Make sense? If you've got a noun and a verb, every word class will naturally flow, okay? Especially if you practice. If you keep practicing, these sentences will flow, okay? They'll just come out of you. So let's look at some examples. So this sentence says, trees stand like intimidating soldiers protecting the entrance of the haunted mansion. Okay, trees stand like intimidating soldiers protecting the entrance of the haunted mansion. So think about the noun and the verb that I chose to use. I chose to talk about the trees and I chose to talk about them standing. Now, there are other verbs and nouns in that sentence, but they were the two that I thought of at first. They were the two that started my brain. Okay, I thought of trees, I thought of them standing there, and then I used those two words as inspiration to let the rest of the sentence flow. When I read back through my sentence, I want to ask myself, well, do I have enough word classes in there? Have I been creative enough? And I can see that I've got adjectives. I can see that I've got another verb. I can see that I've got a preposition. I can see I've got determiner. I don't have conjunctions, but we don't have to use every single word class every single time. I know that it was a challenge, okay, but that's exactly what it is. In the last video, it was a challenge for you to do that, but it doesn't mean we always have to do it. It was just a challenge, okay? But what we do need to do is always make sure that we're being as creative as possible, okay? So let's look at another sentence. Because of its eerie appearance, it gained a reputation as the most haunted house in the country. Now, this sentence is very, very interesting because it begins with the word because. And do you know how many students have said to me throughout the years, you're not supposed to begin a sentence with the word because? Well, why not? Of course you can. If you do it properly, you can. We are absolutely allowed to begin sentences with subordinating conjunctions. That's what this is. This is a subordinating conjunction. Don't worry about what that means because I'm going to tell you what it means in a future lesson very, very soon, actually. Okay, but we can begin sentences with subordinating conjunctions. We can't begin sentences with coordinating conjunctions. There's a difference between the two. Okay, so what I'm going to do really quickly is write down some subordinating conjunctions on the screen. These are conjunctions we can use to begin sentences. So we've got if, since, as, when, although, before, until, because. I think I'm missing one. We've got enough there. Okay, all of these conjunctions are subordinating conjunctions that you can begin sentences with. You absolutely can. There is no rule that you can't begin a sentence with a subordinating conjunction. Ignore it, okay? You can begin a sentence with because. So, because of its eerie appearance, it gained a reputation as the most haunted house in the country. Okay, now what I want you to do is, you can pause the video if you like, or you can kind of do it as I'm speaking. Just have a look through that sentence and think about the word classes that I've used and be critical of me. If you think I could have done better, if you think I could have used more word classes, then that's your view, okay? And it's important to remember that part of your learning and part of the curriculum is to be critical of my writing and all writing that you read, okay? So I won't be offended if you think I could have done better. But the point is, I started my sentence with a conjunction, so it's possible, okay? So what I'd like you to do, sorry, there's one more, I do apologize. Before I tell you what I'd like you to do, let's read for the final sentence. Apprehensively, John and his best friend tiptoed towards the derelict mansion. If you don't know what the word derelict means, have a guess. What might it mean? Have a look at the picture. Have a look at, think about the atmosphere of a scary story. What might derelict mean? Yeah. Then get a dictionary and find out, see if you're correct. I'm not going to tell you. See if you can figure it out yourself. Okay. So apprehensively, John and his best friend tiptoed towards the derelict mansion. I've started that sentence with an adverb. Apprehensively. It's an adverb because it's telling me how they tiptoed. The verb is tiptoed. The noun, John and his friend. And apprehensively is telling me how they did that action. The adverb describes the action, okay? And I've started my sentence with the adverb. So I started my sentence with an adverb. I've started a sentence with a conjunction. And I've started a sentence with a noun, okay? So I've done 3 examples there. All of them are possible, okay? It's possible to start a sentence with every single one of these word classes. You just need to have a think about it. But remember, importantly, think about what you want your noun to do. Sorry, what you want your noun to be and what you want your noun to do. That's the first step. Don't put your pen on paper or pencil on paper and start writing and hoping it will come to you. We need to think about it, and then we put our pen on paper, and then with practice, it will come, it will flow, I promise, okay? All right, so here is the challenge. Now, I won't explain the tier structure again. Actually, I will explain the tier structure again because I know that there's a couple of new students who may not have watched the last video. So tier 1, so let's start with tier 3. Tier 3 is what I want all year 5s to attempt. Every single year 5 should attempt it. If you're year 5 and tier 3 is too tricky, go to tier 2, okay? Tier 2 is for every single year 4 to attempt. All year 4s should attempt tier 2. If it's too tricky, attempt tier 1. However, year 4s, if you want to have a go at doing tier 3, I encourage it. Okay, year 4s, if you think you can do tier 3, please do. All right, so tier 1 is write 3 sentences about the picture below. It's not really below, it's to the side here. Write 3 sentences about the picture below. Begin each sentence with a different word class. So 3 sentences, each sentence starts with a different word class. Tier 2, write 5 sentences about this photo. It's changed from picture to photo. Begin each sentence with a different word class. So 5 sentences, each sentence must start with a different word class. Now, tier 3, the tricky one. Write a sentence which includes every word class. That's one activity. It's tricky, okay? Tier 2. Question 2. Write 2 sentences that begin with conjunctions. Question 3. Write a sentence that begins with an adverb. And question 4. Write 1 more sentence that begins with a word class other than a determiner. So tier 3, you've got 4 questions to answer there, and they're quite tricky. Okay. Now, you are supposed to find it challenging. It's not supposed to be easy. Okay. So when you don't get upset, don't get worried, and don't, if you come to me and say, oh, Mr. O, I found that really challenging, that's exactly what I want to hear. Okay. Because eventually you will not find it challenging. Okay. Eventually, as the year progresses and we get towards the end, you'll find all this easy. But for now, you're supposed to find it challenging. Okay. It's essential that we find it challenging. Okay, so what I'd recommend is pausing the video at this point and doing the work now. Otherwise, the only option is to watch the whole video and come back to this section. Okay, and it might be tricky to find exactly where this part of the video is. So I'd recommend pausing now, doing this bit now, and then doing the rest after, but it's up to you. Okay. All right. Next part of our homework is vocabulary. Now, I told you this week that vocabulary is arguably the most important thing in the 11 plus exam, SATs exams. Okay, vocabulary is super important. Okay, we need to have a good vocabulary. So what we're going to do is we're going to be learning a few words every single week, and now every single time we learn words via this video, it would be a great idea if you had a separate book at home, maybe like a vocabulary book, or just like a book with like the ones we use in our lessons, just lined paper, and write down these words, their definitions, and maybe a sentence for each word so you don't forget what they mean. That's a really good idea if you want to do that. Okay, but let's look at these words. Now, we've looked at them already together, but you may have forgotten what they mean. Okay, so let me remind you. The first word is apprehensive. So in about 5 seconds, I'm going to click the screen and the definition is going to come up. So can you quickly say out loud a synonym for apprehensive if you remember, but if you've forgotten, do not worry. 3, 2, 1. Okay, apprehensive means worried, nervous, that something bad is going to happen. So some synonyms are worried, nervous, scared, and anxious, and some antonyms, some opposite meaning. So words with the opposite meaning is confident and fearless. Okay, so apprehensive is all about feeling worried or nervous about that something bad is going to happen. And here it is being used in a sentence. He felt slightly apprehensive about singing in front of the entire school. He was nervous, he was worried, he was anxious. He did about singing in front of the entire school. Okay, he wasn't confident, he wasn't fearless. Okay, and that's pretty normal, isn't it? If we're singing in front of the entire school, I think I'd be terrified. All right, next word is ecstatic. What does it mean? It's an overwhelming feeling of happiness, a higher degree of happiness than happy. What does that mean? Well, if we imagine happy is here, ecstatic is here. Yeah, ecstatic is super happy, very, 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 very happy. But I've just demonstrated why we need good vocabulary, because we don't want to say very, 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 really, really, really. Instead of saying very, very, very happy, we want to say I am ecstatic. Okay. Some synonyms include happy, overjoyed, over the moon, and some antonyms include sad, upset, and blue. And here it is in the sentence. He was absolutely ecstatic with the news that he is going to become a brother. Okay, and then the final word is listless. This was a weird word, wasn't it? Because when I asked you if you thought you knew what it meant, we never expected its definition because there aren't really that many clues. It sounds like it means that we don't have a list, but then why would there be a word for that? Yeah. So what does it actually mean? It means lacking energy or lacking excitement or lacking enthusiasm. Okay. So some synonyms include tired, lazy, unenergetic, and some antonyms: excited, enthusiastic, energized. All right. So listless is all about being tired or not having a good energy, not having good excitement, not being enthusiastic, being sluggish. Okay. Here it is in the sentence. His listless, his tired, his lazy, his unenergetic attitude did not impress his football coach. So, tier 1. Now we know how the tier structure works, okay? Tier 1. Can you write a sentence for each picture? Each sentence must include one of the following words: apprehensive, ecstatic, and listless. So 3 sentences. Each sentence must include one of those words. So we've got 3 pictures. Write a sentence for each picture, okay? Tier 2, write a sentence for each picture. Again, we need to use those 3 words: apprehensive, ecstatic, and listless. But all sentences must include at least 1 adjective, that should say, and 1 adverb. So a sentence for each picture, 1 adjective and 1 adverb in each sentence. And of course, we need to use that vocabulary: apprehensive, ecstatic, and listless. And tier 3, write a sentence for each picture. Each sentence must include one of the following words. Again, apprehensive, ecstatic, and listless. All 3 sentences must begin with a different word class. So once again, we're writing a sentence for each picture using the vocabulary, but each sentence you write must begin with a different word class. I'm not going to remind you of the word classes. You can rewind the video or see if you can remember them all. All right, we're moving on now to non-verbal reasoning. Non-verbal reasoning, we are going to be looking at something called locate the missing object in the sequence, okay? But before we look at that, let me explain something to you called snaps. Let's introduce snaps. Snaps is very important. It's valuable, okay? We must remember what snaps means, because snaps doesn't just help us with this question type. It helps us with so many different non-verbal reasoning question types. So it will be amazing if we can really understand what I mean by snaps. And I'm going to tell you right now. SNAP stands for shape, number, angle, position, shading, and size. Okay, so it's unlikely that you're going to remember all of those words straight away. That's no problem. Don't have to remember them all straight away, but eventually we want to remember all of them. Okay, but why are they important? What do they do? How are they relevant? Let me explain. So here they are on the screen, right here, snaps, okay? And on the screen, we've got a question. And what we need to do is we've got box 1, box 2, box 3, which is empty, and then box 4. And we need to figure out why box 3 is empty. Which of the objects below belong in box 3, okay? And the way to do this is we need to consider it as a sequence. Something is happening to each box that helps us understand. I just realized, sorry guys, that my camera might be covering these questions. So I'm just going to stop my camera. Okay. Yes, so what we need to do is figure out the rule, what's going on, how is the sequence changing, and then that's going to help us get the correct answer. So what we do is we start off with shapes. We need to consider all of the shapes that exist in each box. So we've got triangle, star, circle, triangle, star, circle. Nothing in here, triangle, star, circle. Now, every single one of these question boxes contains a triangle, star, and circle. So surely, logically, our third box must do the same. It must include a triangle, star, and circle. And if we look below, every one of our options does include a triangle, star, and circle. So we know that shapes isn't going to help us. So then we move on to number. Number is all about the number of things that exist in each box. So we've got 3 things, 3 things, 3 things. Of course, we need 3 things in here. Once again, if we look at the options below, they've all got 3 things, so that's not going to help us. Then we move on to angle. Angle is about how a shape or an object rotates. So if you think about this arrow on the screen, if it were to rotate slightly to the right, it might look like this, or it might look like this. Okay. or it might look like this. That's what I mean by angle, okay? The rotation changes, all right? It's slightly different to position. So we've got to remember that. Now, if we look at the triangles, can you see every triangle is the same orientation? It doesn't rotate at all. So we don't want our triangle to rotate. The same can be said about the stars and the circles. If we look at the stars and the circles, they do not rotate. So we know that angle has nothing to do with this question. So we move on to position. Okay, now this is where we're going to start noticing some changes. Position is about where the objects are, where the shapes are. And it's important that we consider one shape at a time or we'll confuse ourselves. So let's start off by looking at the triangle. The triangle starts in the top left, then it moves to the top right, then we don't know, and then it's in the bottom left. So I need to think about the sequence here. What's going on? We've got triangle top left, triangle top right, triangle don't know, triangle bottom left. There is only one conclusion here, isn't there? And that's that the triangle should be in the bottom right. Because if the triangle's in the bottom right, there's a system. It's gone top left, top right, bottom left. So the triangle is moving from corner to corner in the clockwise direction. Okay, so that means that our triangle needs to be in the bottom right. So that means I can get rid of this option, this one, and this one. And look, already, we've only got 2 options left. So if we had to guess the answer at this point, we've got a 50-50 chance of getting it right, rather than 20% chance of getting it right, okay? But we're not guessing. We're going to get this correct. So let's look at the position of the star. Can you see the star is on the far left? Then it's kind of in the middle. It's not exactly in the middle. It's more towards the left, but it's moved across a bit. Then we don't know. And then the star is on the far right, okay? So far left, left middle, don't know, far right. Let's think about how that star is moving. The star is moving across, isn't it? It's going across the box, which means we want the star to be somewhere between this one and this one, which means the answer is box A. And that's it. We are done. We have found the answer to the first question. So this non-verbal reasoning question doesn't have a tier structure, all right? Instead, I'm going to ask that we all attempt every question that I'm about to show you, okay? It will be challenging. It's supposed to be challenging. You can't find things easy immediately. You have to find them tricky at first, okay? So don't worry if it's challenging. All you can do is give it a go. So what I'm going to do, because the non-verbal reasoning questions take up the whole screen, I'm going to show you 4 more questions. Each time, if you could just pause the video and have a go at doing it, and then play, then I'll show you the next one, okay? So here's the first question. So pause and have a go. And the next one. And the next one. And the next one. All right, well done, guys. You have been brilliant. So, yeah, like I said, if this video has been challenging, good. I'm sorry to sound harsh. It's supposed to be challenging, but don't let that put you down, okay? Things do get easier. They will get easier, okay? But you need to find things challenging. It's so important, okay? All right, we've got challenge of the week. So challenge of the week works like this. You'll need your parents' help with this one. Ask your parents to send to me a voice clip. In your voice clip, you must say a sentence with the following words: apprehensive, listless, and ecstatic. But let me be clear. You must say just one sentence, and that one sentence must include all 3 words. This is tough because you need to imagine a scenario where it would be relevant to use all 3 words in the same context. That's tricky to think of a situation where you'd use all 3 words, but it can be done. I've practiced it and I know it can be done. You can do it, okay? Now, please pay very careful attention to these rules. The voice note must come from your parent. Please do not attempt to send to me anything directly without the permission of your parent, okay? If anything's sent to me directly that doesn't involve your parent, I will not watch it, okay? So make sure that you ask for your parents' permission. Please do not send a video file. The voice clip feature is easy to use via Messenger, okay? So I communicate with your parents using Messenger, and it has a feature where you can send a voice clip. So ask your parent, let them record you, and then do it that way, okay? Please don't send to me a video file. And please don't send to me anything without your parents' permission. Okay, everyone receives a small prize just for entering. So if you enter and maybe you've used one of the words wrong, or maybe you found it really, really tricky, but you gave it a good go, as long as you say those 3 words in a sentence, then you get a small prize. There's a slightly bigger prize that goes to the most creative sentence. Now, don't worry if you don't win. There are many students, okay? So don't worry if you don't win. We're going to have challenge of the week every week, and I'm sure that you will eventually win a challenge if you keep trying. But just for entering, there's going to be a small prize. Now, the challenge of the week, you do not have to do this. This is not compulsory. We do not have to do this, okay? This is just if you fancy an extra challenge, but please do have a go at doing the homework, okay? All right. Thank you very much. Oh, one more thing. Homework doesn't have to be brought in. If you want to bring it in, that's absolutely fine. But if you just want to take a picture of the page, that's brilliant. But once again, ask your parents to do that, okay? So if you've written out your homework on a piece of paper, ask your parents to take a picture and send it to me. That's absolutely fine, rather than bringing your book in because you might forget your book, and I don't want you to stress out. But also, if you just want to do your homework and not send it to me, I do understand that a lot of you have other clubs and other things you need to be doing, so don't stress out too much. But I would recommend trying your best to give this a go. Okay, have a great weekend. Bye.